Hello to the people in the hall and welcome along again for our midweek meditation this Wednesday night at the Dhammaloka Centre. And also a big welcome to the people that are on the internet. Really good to have you along. And just a reminder too at the outset that the care line is open again tonight. We have listeners up there ready to take your call if you would like to call. So they are there from around 6:30 in the evening through to 9 o'clock at night. So you're very welcome to give them a call. And of course, we really started this night really in a way to support the care group. And as I've said many times here, there is a great nexus between the way that we do listen and the way that our listeners on the care line do practice to listen in a particular way, just to listen very deeply, very closely, very lovingly to the calls and to the way people feel, understanding, empathising. And of course, that is very much the way that we practice to do our meditation too. So there is a great correlation between what we do here with listening to others, but also just listening to ourselves in the meditation, just listening deeply to understand just what it is that we're working with here in this human condition that we're all involved in. And in the last few times that I've spoken here, I've been running along the line of the 7 factors of enlightenment, and especially paying attention to the second factor, which is investigation. Investigating our minds, investigating what arises in our minds, the way that things come and go, the way that things begin and end. And this is all especially relevant when we do this, when we relate it all and know very carefully what we're doing as far as the present moment goes, because as we all realise and understand now, I think that the present moment is really, in a way, what we are trying to uncover in this meditation, to allow our concentration, using all of the 8 factors of the Eightfold Path to practice and allow ourselves to go deeply into this present moment so that we can actually see just what the Buddha saw, just what the Buddha was pointing to in his teachings. And this, as I've mentioned too many times, it's always very possible and very it is a wonderful thing for us all to do, and especially lay people. I'm always aware that sometimes lay people are of the opinion that I can't do this or it's not for me, but I don't think that's true at all. I think that we as lay people are very capable indeed of understanding what the Buddha was talking about and pointing to. I know that it's not particularly easy, and it's a bit arcane, and it takes a fair bit of just patience and endurance to just sit with yourself, to sit with the present moment. But the joy of all of this is when we finally do start to understand the stillness that's there in the present moment, when the right concentration starts to work, and we start to work well with the mindfulness so that we're going deep into our minds, but at the same time we're also staying with, in a mindful way, staying with what we're looking at, watching the conditions as they come and go in our minds. So staying with that, and then of course the right energy as well. So those 3 factors there in the Eightfold Path on the meditation side of things, they come together in this, with this stillness, the stillness that starts to arise in our minds. And when we can understand that stillness and be with it, it's really when your practice, I think, does start to become really good. It starts to become quite animated, and you start really to look forward to your meditation rather than sort of seeing it as a trial or a drudge or, how much longer have I got to sit here, that kind of thing. It's more when the stillness starts to appear in your mind, you do start to really understand the beauty and the joy of what it is to make your mind still and just allow that process of stillness in a way, it heals. It's like a healing thing. It has many, many qualities because stillness is really nothing more than still consciousness. And this consciousness, but it's consciousness, it's not moving. So and it's just amazing how lovely it is just to be with a mind when it's still. And then, of course, the way that this process normally happens, if you can practice to make your mind still and really enjoy that process, luxuriate in that process really even, just to really allow yourself to wallow in the stillness and just be there with it. The happiness and the joy that arises is really quite something. But then when the meditation is finished, you get the added benefit then of the wisdom side of the Eightfold Path starting to arise for you. So just, gradually you're starting to turn yourself to the right view and knowing you're starting to know the right intention for practice. And that wisdom element then will start to arise for you as well as you start to be more and more with this stillness. But it is really this right view of things that I was going to just address tonight a little bit more, just in the way that I really wanted to talk about a paradigm shift, really, just shifting the paradigm. And this is really, again, what we've been talking about a little bit over the past weeks is really just coming to the realisation that this human condition is nowhere else but inside our minds. And the mind is your mind. It's inside you. And gradually, bit by bit, you start to come on to the idea, and you start to get the idea that this mind itself is not something that's outside of you. It's certainly not your brain. Your brain facilitates your mind. That's very clear when you start to go deeper into the meditation process. You'll start to see that this is quite just the facts of this and why it is true, because it is in actual fact quite a reasonably, well, I wouldn't say easy, but it's many meditators know what it's like to absorb completely into your mind and have the body and the world drop off, to have the body and the world move away so that there is just the stillness left and you're just absorbed into the stillness, just the beauty of that and how the mind becomes so focused and clear when this happens. And the clarity that it brings shows you beyond any doubt that that this external world that we all live with, and indeed just this body, is really just it has the characteristics that the Buddha talked about of just the characteristics of all things, which is that it has the characteristic of dukkha, so it's unsatisfactory. When we're looking at the conditions like this, it's also impermanent. That's fairly easy to see, just the way that it shifts and moves around and changes all of the time. But then a little bit deeper aspect is really just looking to see that it is also that it's also not self, that there really isn't a self there at all. That we're in the stillness, we start to develop the clarity and the wisdom just to see how this works. And as that starts to build up in our minds, we can really then start to understand what it means to see the mind inside this body, this universe, inside this body, inside my body, my world. When I look out here, I'm looking at the people in the hall, and I'm looking at all of the conditions that I can see there. But you come to the realisation that all this is in my mind and it's inside myself. I'm responsible for all of this in a way. Certainly there'll be people that can come along and ruin my day, or people come along and make it hard for you. But there's also, on the other hand to that, there's people that make me joyful and happy, and wonderful things to see too in the world. But all of that really doesn't change the fact, though, that this universe, this world that we're looking out on, is really inside our mind. And that's really what I'm meaning when I'm talking about the paradigm, because it is basically true, I think, that when we're looking out into this external world, we really believe that it is out there, don't we? It's very difficult to just at the drop of a hat just to say, this world is not, it's not out there, it's actually in my mind. Because the paradigm that we use is that it is external, and it's very, very compelling in a way when we see it like that. Or even physicists and the doctors and psychiatrists and so on, they'll talk about the mind as if it, or even the mind being in the brain. There's something as fundamental as that. I think that is talked about to try and emphasise, or to keep us thinking in a way that this world is external to us. But in fact, as you go deeper and deeper into this process of meditation, you really do start to see that that's not the case. The Buddha, in fact, he said himself that everything that he's seen, everything that he's understood from inside this fathom-long length of body that he... That's how he explained that, how he'd come to terms with that, how he developed the wisdom and the ability to see what he saw. It was really just by looking inside himself, looking at his own mind, the mind that's inside himself. But as I've mentioned, though, shifting that paradigm is really very... It's just not done very simply. It's work that we need to do in an ongoing way. And this practice of meditation is always a gentle inclination towards the truth, a gentle inclination. So we just realise that we've just got to stay with it, work with it. It's just like filling up a bucket with a drop of water every few seconds, but eventually the bucket fills if you stay with it, if you keep the process going. And that's certainly what I'd encourage everyone to do, and also when you're working with this paradigm shift, because I think certainly, if you see the way that the monks, in the way that the monks and our nuns practice. Their practice is very diligent. It's practice that keeps them focused on this very subject really all of their lives. They try to, but there's absolutely no reason why we can't do that ourselves too as lay people. I know that we've got to work, and there's certainly various responsibilities and jobs that we've got to do, but it's still possible to be mindful. Because this stillness that's in the mind, this stillness can be cultivated. And it can be amplified. And I would encourage everyone to do that when we sort of see it, and once we've seen and we know what that stillness is beyond any doubt, the onus then becomes for us to practice with it, to amplify it, and to raise it up, to make sure that it's there all of the time. And just, I mean, even just in thinking about this over the last little while myself, just even thinking and being with that stillness, even when you're going to sleep, when you're going into bed, when you're eating, when you're washing, when you're showering, just having that continuous mindfulness of the stillness and just having it there all of the time. And gradually, bit by bit, you do start to see that this world is coming out of that still consciousness. It's actually the way that the Buddha talked, or the way that I like to understand this anyways, through the Buddha's teachings, is when you look at the khandhas, the 5 khandhas the Buddha talked about, the 5 aggregations. A khandha means an aggregate. And consciousness has this propensity to aggregate, and we can see that when we look out into this world, the world, and even just the conditions of this hall, the way the bricks are put together, and the beams and the wood and the tiles and the carpets. Everything like that is an aggregation, very, very complicated, very complex. As we've been sort of talking, a few weeks ago, I gave a bit of an idea of this when I was talking about strange loops, just the way that complexity builds up. There's even a science of chaos theory that sort of talks about this, and a universal law of universality, actually, that describes the way that complex conditions work and how they are attracted, how we can understand them by understanding their point of attraction, where they're sort of moving towards, what they're doing, and with the consequences of that, as I was mentioning a couple of weeks ago, that gradually we can get to understand some of the systems, these very, very complicated systems, like the weather, or even like our hearts and the systems that sort of make up our body. And there's many, many of them, and they all kind of working together symbiotically and very complex. But it's all just there in these, and you can sort of see the way that all of that comes together in your mind with these complex patterns and so on that are there. But then gradually, as the stillness starts to become more important for you, these complications more or less are dropped away. You drop them off. And it's not that you're trying to get rid of them or anything. They're all good, They are the complications of all of this, these worldly and conditions that make us all up are very beneficial to us. Of course, they give us life. They give us our breath and the ability to understand this practice. This being in the human condition is a very fortunate place to be, because we do have this ability to self-reflect in this way, to look back and sort of see, so that we can drop off these complications and go and unify our minds, make our minds unify in a nested way, the way that sort of one thing nests inside another, like this. You're going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until you finally get back to just still consciousness. It's really all that's there in your mind, just this absorbing into this stillness, still consciousness. And this is the 5th aggregate, the 5th khandha. And then I won't sort of go into those tonight, but the aggregations build up from pure consciousness right through to the physical form, which is the 1st khandha, which is all of this that we see. But all of this process, all of these very, very strange ways that things attract to one another and the way that they work and fit together and nest into each other like this, it's really all there for you to see. It's not that, I don't understand any of this really in a physical or a scientific way. I couldn't sort of sit here and write you down equations to sort of show you how all this works, but it's the magic of the stillness, though, because the stillness itself allows your mind to become very clear, very precise. And you just naturally, it's a natural process where these things do just start to unify. And you find yourself right back at the stillness that's right there in the heart of the present moment. And with that stillness, once that stillness is there, and you can start to amplify it and start to build it up and make sure that it's there. Try to be mindful of it right through your day. And it is something that you can have with you all of the time. And what a wonderful thing it is too. I mean, I think Cecilia was alluding to this a little in her talk last week when she was talking about may the pause be with you. Just talking about the way that we can pause in our lives to just so that we're not just blindly sort of following on to do things, that we can actually reflect and make wise choices with things when this stillness is there, when that pause that she was talking about comes. Just even the pause, say, for a breath, or just the pause when I'm talking here, just there's stillness in between, and stillness in those pauses, in that stillness. And when that stillness is there, it gives us the opportunity and the chance to be clear, to be precise, to just reflect back on what it is that we're doing and the decisions that we're making. So, and then gradually as this does build up, well, then you start to get the opportunity for these paradigm shifts, for this paradigm shift. It's only, I think it sort of happens bit by bit by bit. It's not something it's a bit like looking at some of those images that you see. I don't know, you would have seen, at one moment you're looking at this painting or a picture, and it's an old woman, an old hag woman, and then the next minute your brain switches and there's a young girl there, someone, and many artworks that are like that. I think Escher, as an artist, used to do that kind of trickery of the mind a bit. Like, it's very interesting to see. But it is probably a little bit like that because we get used of seeing this world externally, and it's been with us like this way all of our lives, all of our past lives, for eons and eons. It's the way that things have built up, the complications of the world, the complications of the universe have sort of built up into these loops that just go round and round and round and round. But you see this in the stillness, just the way that this iteration happens with the stillness. It's beginning and ending, as the Buddha said countless times in the wink of an eye. It starts and then it finishes, and it builds up, and it's picking up these aggregations and turning them round and round and round. So this world is really beginning and ending countless times in the wink of an eye. But all this does, you do get the opportunity with practice to start to notice and see all of this, just to notice and see how this works, and the fact that this, once you're sort of involved in the absorption of the still consciousness, you are then able to bring the whole thing back into yourself, and you kind of know that this is me that's working with my universe. And for you, it's the other way around. It's you looking into your universe. And it's up to each and every one of us just to make our universes peaceful. Nobody else can really ever do that for you. It's, other good teachers can point the way, show you the way that it works and so on. But by and large, though, the responsibility for understanding all this really is with us. And I suppose, so the more you can sort of see the value in doing it, the value in trying to understand and working with this, in doing the meditation, in sort of practicing what the Buddha taught us to do, gradually you do start to sort of shift that paradigm so that gradually the right view the first of the Eightfold Path does start to come into view for you. The right view, and then once that starts to happen, then the right intention. And then, of course, all of the other factors that sort of come on from that, all of the moral side of the Eightfold Path too, the right speech, the right action, the right livelihood, all of that starts to work well. And as that's starting to work for you, then the process of the meditation, the right concentration, right samadhi, in fact, right mindfulness and the right energy, that's all there. And gradually the whole thing's like a virtuous circle that's sort of taking you deeper and deeper towards the present moment, towards understanding just what it is that we're all involved in here and what we're looking at. So this all comes about from this second factor of enlightenment that the Buddha talked about, the factor of investigation, the way that we investigate into ourselves, the way that we can look into our minds and work with it. And I think in saying all this too, I certainly don't want to ever give the idea or the impression that I'm trying to, that I'm trying to in any way invalidate the world. It's not really a process of that, because we are part of this world. I am part of this world. So the practice must always include that recognition, I believe. It's the best way to go. It kind of works quite well for me anyway, so I want to sort of pass that on so that we do practice to ground ourselves, recognise that this body is part of this world. All the elements and well, maybe not so much the elements, but certainly all the protein and the way that we might allow our body to operate with all of the nutrients and that we take in, the water that we drink. All of that is just very, very necessary, and we are part of this earth. But again, as I've mentioned in other times too, it's even more than that, because we are really part of this universe. I mean, we don't really maybe think too much about the stars and the vast areas of space and just what all of that means. But in fact, every element heavier than or with more mass than iron has been made in a star. So all of those heavier elements that are in our body that make up our brains and make up all the sinews and the muscles and everything that goes into making a body, they all come from the stars. We are literally children of the stars. They come about when the supernova explosions happen in space. And so in a very, very real way, we are part of this universe. This universe is in us. It is us. We are this universe. So when I'm sitting here and I'm looking out into my world, this is literally my world. I can't really exist without it. We couldn't exist without the sun, probably the biggest star that's closest to us anyway. And that has a profound effect on our lives, as it does keep us alive. And that sun is dependent on the other stars that are in the galaxies and all the galactic clusters. And in fact, it's interesting even I was looking in a magazine the other week about some mapping that they've been doing. The Australian Anglo Observatory actually has been mapping some of the galactic clusters that are around in the universe, and they've produced these quite magnificent photos of these like filaments that are out there that connect all of the stars and the galactic clusters, and they're there, just these filaments that sort of run through space and moving from maybe centres to centres, and their connections there and connections. And when you look at this map, when I looked at this map that they'd made, you really wouldn't be able to tell the difference between what they map when they look in your brain. That the way that the neurons and all of those little filaments in your brain sort of connect. It looks exactly the same. It's quite amazing, actually. And I know even the mycelium that's in the earth underneath, that sort of connects usually all of the, connects all the trees and the plant life and all of that too. That's when you look at a map of that, you look at the way that's, you look at that in a diagram. It's all very, 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 very close to what your brain looks like or what the galactic clusters look like. We are really just so much a part of all of this. We can never ever imagine that that we can just leave it all be, or reject it all, just try to get rid of it all. I don't want this anymore. It's just not very wise to do that, because we do need to settle ourselves into this place, into this earth, and it's only then that you'll start to really settle into the stillness of the present moment, because this present moment is right there in the heart. It's the middle way. It's that middle way between all of the extremes, because you've got. I mean, the universe will probably just go on and maybe it'll become reborn again after this one's finished in goodness knows how many billion years. But just the same as when the Buddha was asked by his monks, where does this consciousness begin then? Where did it begin? And the Buddha kind of said he'd been back in his mind over 24 kalpas. A kalpa is actually a term that he used to describe a universal cycle. So that's the beginning and end of a universe. It's a huge, huge length of time. I mean, we're about 14,000 million years now into this current universal cycle. But when it's going to end, with 60 billion years, 80 billion years, they talk about proton decay maybe. But then, what happens then? But you start to realise when you're looking in your own meditation, just the same as when you're looking at a breath. Watch your breath coming in, and that conditions the breath going out, and that conditions the breath coming in. A rebirth of a breath, if you like. It's sort of, the breath comes back in, and then the breath goes out. It's just a conditioned process that goes on, and can be the same with a day. A day begins, and then now we're sort of into the night time now, so we're more or less heading to the end of it, the end of this day. But there's the conditions in place for tomorrow to come. So you'll see the sky brighten in the east, and then another day, and then there's a week or a year. But then you can even say, look at a lifetime. So, I mean, just the way that we look at, say, when we were born, usually our parents might sort of tell us a little bit about that. You might be lucky enough to even know or have some awareness of being born. There are some people that can do that, I think. But for most of us, it's not probably possible to do that. So, but we hear the way that we were born. We know that we were born. And we all know that we're going to die. But all that is, again, it's just all part of this process of beginnings and ends, beginning and ending. So we're born and we die, and then the death conditions a new rebirth. Then off we go again. I mean, I feel quite confident to talk about this too, because just in my hypnotherapy practice, I kind of specialise a little bit in working with people that come in with traumas from past lives, and I've been lucky enough over the years to be with a lot of people that have been able to describe and look at and see, what's been there for them in, what's caused the conditions that they have now to be there because of something that's happened in a past life. And some very, very interesting stories, very compelling stories too, that you can see. So this process of beginning and ending, of conditioning, it's just ongoing. But the only way that we can really be with all of that is just to understand this middle way. So we're moving. So when the Buddha talks about beginningless beginnings, because that's what he said. I don't know if I mentioned that before when he was asked by his monks. What could he see? He said no beginning could be seen. He'd been back over 24 kalpas. No beginning could be seen. And then you get the other, probably the Christian idea a little bit of just endless ends. So you've got this consciousness that's got beginningless beginning and endless ends. But just the same as, what we've been talking about here, and anyway, there's really not too much to be had or found in the extremes. We're usually always better to come back towards the middle way. The way that even when the Buddha, when he finally realised that he'd already had the life of luxury as a prince, and then he kind of decided he's going to go on this this idea of living a harsh and harsh life where he was going to thrash his body and really become an ascetic. And then he realised that wasn't quite right. That extreme was, you could see the extreme in the palace as one thing, but then the extreme as an ascetic is another. So again, he realised this is the first realisation that he had when he was really coming towards the idea of his enlightenment. He thought, this is not working at all. He said, what about the middle way? He thought, what about the middle way? So then he built himself up and finally came back and practiced in the middle way. And it's this middle path between the extremes, between beginningless beginnings and between beginningless beginnings and eternity. We come back to the middle way, the middle path, right here and now, where where truth is, where the balance is, where everything balances. So I wanted to stop there because I would like to invite Sandra to come up if she would. And Sandra is going to maybe come on this side so I can push this across for you, Sandra. Sandra is going to conduct tonight's meditation, and over coming weeks I'm going to try and arrange for a few other very good lay people to come and give a little teaching. And I think this is very important too, for people to understand that lay people can do this work of Buddhism and work to understand and be with what the Buddha saw. So I'll invite Sandra now to do tonight's meditation for us.
Thank you, Dennis. And I can see you've got a little clock here, so that's very good.
You can go as long as you like.
Okay. Maybe if you just pass over to Belle as well. Yeah. Yeah, so my name's Sandra, and I'd like to just pick up on some of the themes that Dennis was talking about. I have a little group that meets every week, the Perth Mindfulness Meditation Group. And one of the meditations I love to teach is Anapanasati, which translates as wisdom of the breath. So I'd like for each of you just to make yourself comfortable, because the most important thing about meditation, of course, is to be kind and compassionate to ourselves. So allow yourself to become comfortable. If you're sitting in a chair, just put your feet on the floor. Feel a connection with the earth. We are made of the earth. We return to the earth. Start to feel the silence, the stillness. It's quite beautiful in this Dharma hall tonight. And if you're sitting down, you might even just put your fingers on the floor. This Dharma hall so full of people, of love, compassion and kindness. You can feel the energy. Start to become aware of the sounds. The sound of the breeze and the trees outside. All the little creaks in the room. And feeling into this silence, this stillness, start to listen really deeply to the sound of your own breathing. Listening to the sound of the in-breath and the out-breath, always changing, constantly arising and passing. Greet it like a friend. You might like to even put one hand on your heart and the other on your tummy. And feeling the gentle movements of the breath. Becoming aware of the sensations. And allowing yourself to breathe to the very bottom of the lungs. You know, as we get older, we tend to lose the capacity to breathe from the very bottom of our lungs. So feel it. As you start to follow the breath, from the very point where the in-breath begins, right up to the point where it turns to become the out-breath, following it to the very end, to restart again anew, breathing all the way in and all the way out. And you might even say to yourself, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. Nowhere to be, nothing to do, just simply sitting, breathing. As we start to tune in to our deep intelligence, becoming more curious, aware, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. See if you can follow the breath in the mind's eye. So not speeding ahead or following behind. Just being with the breath through every moment. And as you look closely As you become more still, more at peace, you start to notice the little spaces between the in-breath and the out-breath. It's like the in-breath is the future, the out-breath is the past, and in between these two is the present moment. Timeless, boundless, spacious. And with the attitude of curiosity, you might start to notice whether the in-breath is shorter or longer than the out-breath. Do you breathe in deeply? Do you let go completely? What is this experience of breathing? As you start to become aware of the whole body of the breath, it's bringing your attention out a little, starting to feel the movements of the chest, the subtle rise and fall. Always changing. Yet beneath this, there is a stillness. Beneath our perceptions of sensation arising and passing. Feeling into the shoulders. Again, noticing the slight rise and fall of the shoulders. Noticing the spaces, the spaciousness. As we bring our awareness up to the face, bringing a smile to our face, feeling that smile extend all the way up into the eyes. The eyes are smiling, becoming soft. As we turn our gaze inwards, and let our awareness drift down into the heart, drifting down beneath all the movements of the mind, all the perceptions of thought that just simply arise and pass. We drift down into the heart space. It's feeling into the heart space. There's the physical heart, then there's the spiritual heart. You might start to feel a sense of warmth, sense of openness, softness. And letting the awareness come down to the tummy, feeling into the belly. Feeling a sense of softness. Gentle arising and passing of the breath, the sensations of the tummy, and noticing the difference in awareness. When we shift our energy, our awareness down towards the earth, feeling the contact of the buttocks with the cushion. Again, feeling the movements of the breath. And imagining, sensing, feeling a sense of letting go with every out-breath. It's like the breath is traveling down the body, through the torso, the legs, the thighs, the knees, the shins and calves, all the way down to the feet, right down to the toes. And with every out-breath, letting go of all those things that no longer serve us. Allowing the earth to cradle us, hold us with a sense of love, a deep nurturing. Whole body breathing. Whole body connected and at peace. And when you're ready, you're going to bring the awareness up again. Every in-breath, bringing more energy and vitality. So feeling into the toes and feet, feet nice and relaxed, yet with a sense of liveliness within. A lively spirit. Feeling up into the lower legs, the knees, back up into the thighs. Feeling into the buttocks and hips and pelvis. Feeling a sense of aliveness. Sense of spaciousness. And pelvis, place of new beginnings and creativity. As we bring our awareness up, the solar plexus, a little area below our ribs, feeling a sense of freedom, vigor, a source of power and strength. And bringing the awareness back up to the heart, feeling our hearts expand, our hearts opening, allowing us to receive love, to give love, metta, karuna, mudita, equanimity. And bringing our awareness back up to the throat. When we speak our truth, we speak words of kindness. And up to the eyes. Crown of the head, whole body breathing, whole body at peace. So we feel the spaciousness within the body, the spaciousness around us, the space within, same as the space without. As we turn our gaze inwards, looking into our own mind, like we're looking into a clear blue sky. And we know that the thoughts, just merely perceptions, they arise and pass. As we rest in the beauty of the present moment. And we let go of any clinging, any craving, any holding on. Completely at ease, equanimity. In a few moments, I'll bring the meditation to a close. Just catch your reaction, those perceptions. Let them go. Start to deepen the breath a little. Feeling the sensations of the in-breath and the out-breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Now breathing in a little bit deeper. Breathing out a little bit more. Becoming aware of the sounds. Feeling the peace. The stillness. Now breathing in completely, letting go completely. Just listening to the very end of the bell. And with the eyes closed, bringing your hands up to your heart. And saying a gentle thank you to yourself for taking this time to rest in stillness. And if it feels right, maybe dedicating your practice to someone in need of a little care and kindness right now. And gently opening the eyes, turning to the people next to you and saying thank you to them too for meditating together this evening. Thank you, everybody.
You could just mention that anyone would like to come over. Ron's brought some food.
Oh yes, Ron has put on an amazing spread of nibbles in the kitchen, and I'd like to invite all of you to join us for fellowship and tea. And if you're listening at home, the care line is open. Feel free to call. You know, Dennis, I read an interesting stat in this book, Community Building, and people were asked how many people could they call on in times of need. And it was a little sad because if they're lucky, some people might say 2. But for the majority of people, maybe one person, a lot of the time it's no one. So, yeah, feel free. There are some beautiful souls waiting to listen to you. So thank you.
And pay our respects to the Buddha.